The United States has now been fighting in Afghanistan for 17 years. For that entire time, Dr. Abdullah Abdullah has sat at the forefront of Afghan politics. He twice ran for president in fraud-riddled elections and twice lost. After a bitter post-election fight in 2014 with eventual winner Ashraf Ghani, Abdullah signed a power-sharing agreement and became chief executive officer. The Taliban and other insurgents still conduct daily attacks, and the country's stability remains in doubt. To discuss all this, Nick Schifrin is back with this interview he taped recently in New York.
Dr. Abdullah Abdullah, Chief Executive of Afghanistan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There are now 26 districts under the Taliban control, according to your government. More than 5,000 civilians became casualties last year, according to the UN, one of the highest totals ever. Why do you think there hasn't been more progress in Afghanistan?
That's one side of the picture, which is challenging, of course. It is a challenge for us. The other side of the picture shows progress in the lives of the citizens, in the economy, in the revenue generation, education, services, private sector development. And the fact that there isn't more progress is the fact that the security still is a challenge, and it absorbs most of our resources, energy, and time.
About a year ago, President Trump announced a new South Asia strategy.
My original instinct was to pull out, and historically, I like following my instincts.
President Trump has expressed skepticism about keeping troops in Afghanistan. Do you think the strategy is sustainable?
To make it work is, of course, part of it is for us inside the country as authorities, as well as the citizens of that country. And part of it is the cooperation from the region, which the strategy has a regional aspect in it. Another part of it is dealing with the sanctuaries.
So you just used the word sanctuary. Are you referring to Pakistan?
Yes. That part of the issue remains to be still an impediment, a challenge.
The U.S. has spent $750 billion on security in Afghanistan and $125 billion on reconstruction. Those of us who live in Afghanistan know that it's not about the money, but it has been 17 years. Why do you believe that this strategy can succeed where the last 17 years of strategy hasn't produced the results that were promised?
There were detractions. Engagement in Iraq was one detraction. The announcement of withdrawal in 2012, which created an aura of uncertainty, that was another detraction, and that affected the security situation, economic situation, and also the calculus of friends and foes towards Afghanistan. These are behind us now. The responsibility on the shoulders of Afghan security forces, mainly security and defense forces, that's a big shift. So that means that US is not having the same burden on its shoulders as it used to have.
And what about commitment from senior Afghans to the United States? There have been some prominent political figures, some parliamentarians recently, as you know, who question the utility, the bilateral security agreement between Afghanistan and the United States. Does that signal an erosion of trust in NATO and the United States on the Afghan side?
I would say that consider that as part of freedom of speech. There was a meeting, there was a get-together for another purpose, and some political leaders which had developed their own opinions in the past few years based on different reasons. At times, for example, when we have civilian casualties as a result of military operations, people are upset. You don't expect those families which have given losses to come and praise all of us, including us in the government.
The U.S. has begun talks with the Taliban about future peace negotiations. Have you seen any evidence the Taliban is serious about this round of talks, more serious perhaps than they have been about previous rounds?
That remains to be seen. Taliban so far have not shown real intentions. From time to time they have participated in some contacts or talks and then used it only for PR purposes which were not the purpose of those meetings or those contacts. The pressure on Taliban inside Afghanistan should continue, military security wise, and outside Afghanistan also they should feel pressure.
There used to be a lot more pressure on them because there used to be 100,000 U.S. troops. So why would they come to the table and speak directly to you, the Afghan government, which is what the U.S. is asking for, when they wouldn't in the past?
Now Taliban don't have the same excuse as they were using because they are facing the Afghan forces. The Afghan security forces were non-existent 17 years back. Part of the strategy is to double the size of our commando forces, which are effective forces, the Air Force. These are the capabilities which will enable us to pursue dual track. One is to protect our citizens. Second one is to find out whenever there is an opportunity for talks and negotiations, seize it and capitalize on it.
Presidential elections in April. Will you be running with President Ghani or against him?
There is a solid commitment in my part that to help the unity government function until the last day of its mandate. To run with President Ghani is not an option for me, in the same token with any other candidate.
And today, you're in the United States. What's your message to U.S. officials you're meeting with and to American viewers who might still be skeptical about the war?
The U.S. have made big investment in peace, in fact, and stability of a part of the world. While we are grateful, our people also have made big sacrifices. Together, we have been through this journey. My message is that it is doable. It's also in the interest of peace and stability in that part of the world that we complete this journey together.